So far, our app is mostly static, but in real applications, there are a lot of actions happening inside them. Very often, the actions are triggered by users' gestures, such as pressing a button, typing a value inside a text field, or scrolling a screen. To make an app interactive, you can provide custom functions that will be called in response to these different events. A good example of that is responding to a button being pressed. Let's start by importing a button component. This is a standard React Native component. Now we will display it at the very bottom of the screen. I configure the button by providing two properties. A title which says press me and color which I set to red for better visibility. Now I close the tab, save, and the button is rendered. The app shows the button but also displays a warning telling us that another property on press is missing. This is how we handle a button pressed event. We pass the handling function as a property of a component. Let's define a handler for it as a standalone function. Function handle button pressed, and it prints to the console a message pressed. Now let's pass this function as a property to the button. On press equals handle button press. Let's also split the element definition into multiple lines as it does not fit in a single line. Now I open the console, and when I press the button, you can see that the message is displayed. Good. Unfortunately, handling events in external function, like here, has a limitation. We do not have access to component state. Say that I want to increase the age state property each time a button is pressed. A common pattern for an event handler function is to be a method of the class. We don't need this anymore, so I cut this fragment of code and insert it inside our class. We don't need the function keyword anymore. Inside the body, I will update the state property. So this set state. Now age becomes this state age plus 1. Now we got an error because this function no longer exists. We need to refer to the class method with this keyword. You must remember not to put the parentheses after this handle button press function because we don't call this function here. We only provide a reference to it. It looks good, but the strange thing happens when I press the button. The reason for that is because in JavaScript, the meaning of this is determined while calling a function, not while defining it. This mechanism of setting a value of this is called a context binding. The late binding in JavaScript is a powerful mechanism because it allows you to reuse your JavaScript code in different contexts, but it causes some problems in situations like event handling. We can set the value of this explicitly with the JavaScript bind method. Let's do it inside a constructor. This handle button press is assigned a new value, which is this handle button press bind this. It creates a new function that has this keyword set to the provided value, which is the value of this in the context of the container class. This is needed to make this work inside the callback. Now, when I press the button, you can see that the age is increased by 1 each time. Another option to handle binding of this is by defining handlers with arrow functions and using class fields. So we modify the function like this. Handle button pressed is equal an arrow function. Arrow functions adopt this binding of the enclosing scope. So here it will be the scope of our container class component. It means that they do not change the meaning of this keyword. And therefore we do not need this line anymore. This is a simplified form, so we will use it in our code. Let's save it and press again. Okay, it works fine.